Ferrari has had many important races in their history, but there is one that is more important than all of the rest. They had their entire reputation on the line, and 50 years of racing triumphs would be completely useless if they did not win, because they hadn't won the 24 Hours of Le Mans in 58 years. And when the 100th anniversary came around, there would be no better time to redeem themselves for not winning for half a century. This was their chance to redeem themselves, back to one of the most victorious teams in motorsport racing, having their name next to racing giants like Porsche, Toyota, and Jaguar. But there was one major problem with them trying to win. They hadn't won a race at Le Mans in 58 years, and they haven't even competed in the 24-hour endurance race at the track since 1973. After they lost to the Ford GT in 1965, they were unable to get their place back at the top of the podium. And after 8 years of unsuccessful attempts at Le Mans, they decided to leave Le Mans in the 1973 season. This was in hopes of winning other racing series like F1. Although they got moderately successful in those other racing series, it made it very hard for them to start making a new car from scratch they would be able to win at Le Mans. The experience from other racing series and from Le Mans 60 years ago would not help them because it is a completely different race than it was. Normally it takes a few seasons for a manufacturer to even compete in the middle of the pack, but Ferrari did not have a few seasons, and they also didn't want to be in the middle of the pack. Ferrari had less than a year to create a car that could win at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Their chance to redeem themselves would come in 2023, on the centennial anniversary of the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Everyone would be watching because it was the 100th anniversary of Le Mans. This is the perfect time for Ferrari to prove they are one of the best racing manufacturers in all of Europe. Ferrari needed a car that would win at Le Mans, but they also needed a car that would look good. They couldn't just come back to Le Mans and win with an ugly car. They're Ferrari. So Ferrari made the 499P, a beautiful car that looked like it might be able to win Le Mans. The car was powered by a twin-turbo V6 that made 671 horsepower, an electric engine that made 268 horsepower. The car was brand new and it needed testing, which is exactly what Ferrari didn't have time for. Ferrari would have a little bit of time for testing. This is because before the race at Le Mans, there would be 3 races before that, and this is where Ferrari would meet their competition. The other racers, especially Toyota, who had won the last 5 years at Le Mans back to back. The Toyotas dominated all 3 races, but Ferrari got closer and closer to knocking them off the top spot with each race. Before the big race at Le Mans, there would be a major rule change that would help the Ferraris in a major way. The rule change was that all cars would have to put a weight in their car to try to even out the playing field and make it more competitive. The weight was put in based on your performance. The Toyotas had the biggest weight by far with 37 kilograms, a huge difference in a race car like this. Because of the weight impending the Toyotas, the 2 Ferraris were both able to start in front. But remember, this is an endurance race. It's not about where you start, it's where you end at 24 hours. So starting doesn't matter that much. This would be shown when it was disaster for the Ferraris in the first lap of the race. Before even one lap could be completed at the French racetrack, the Toyotas had already taken back the lead. They were using soft tires, and the Italians were using medium tires. But Le Mans is a racetrack and is known for many of the best racing and unbelievable stories ever, in being unpredictable and being able to have anything happen. And as the rain started to fall 3 hours into the race, it looked like anything could happen. This is because Ferrari was able to take back the lead during the rain when a Porsche driver that was in the lead crashed out because they were on slick tires. The next obstacle for the cars would not be so friendly, and both Toyota and Ferrari would lose a car out of the race. While trying to avoid a GT car that spun out, the number 51 Ferrari also spun out and ended up in the gravel. This cost the number 51, the Ferrari, the lead, and even though they were in 5th, they kept racing. But at a similar time, one of the Toyotas would be crashed and totally out of the race. The number 7 Toyota was slowing down for the slow zone, but the cars behind it did not see the start of the slow zone, and crashed into the Toyota, completely eliminating the Toyota number 7 from the race. But Ferrari would also have their own problems. The number 50 Ferrari rolled into the pits and won't exit for nearly 28 minutes. The Ferrari team needed to fix what seemed like a radiator. This cost the team precious time, and they got the car running again, but it would seem almost impossible that car would eventually reach the top spot again. Now it was essentially a 1v1 between Toyota and Ferrari, both having one car left that could win. Around 7 a.m. the sun was rising, and it looked like the battle between the two cars was strong. The Ferrari looked like it could pass Toyota, but then the Toyota was radioed in about pitting. The Italian team followed them, and it looked like who would take the lead of the race would be decided about who had the faster pit. The Ferrari team was able to pit faster and led the race in front of the Toyotas with very good pace. It looked like the Ferrari team had surprisingly built a very competitive car that could even win the 24 Hours of Le Mans in less than 1 year. But a few hours later, Ferrari would see Toyota pass them in the pits again, because the Ferrari didn't turn on. But when the car finally turned on, it was able to get back into the race, and it was able to chase down the Toyota. Amazingly, the car built by Ferrari was able to pass the Toyota. With good laps after this accident, the Toyota spun out and the gap grew, putting the Ferrari on top. As the prancing horse came into the pits for his final pit stop, it looked like the Ferrari just needed to fill the tank and keep it running until it crossed the line, giving them a trophy that they so desired and left them hurting for 50 years. But the car didn't turn on, and it didn't seem like it was going to turn on anytime soon. The same failure that just hours ago cost them a lead came back. And as the Toyota grew closer and the clock ticked down, it looked like Ferrari would stumble on the last hurdle of this 24-hour race. But then, the car began to move, and with just a few laps left, the car was able to cross the finish line in first place. For the first time in 50 years, Ferrari was victorious at the most prestigious race in all of motorsport. And then they did the biggest version of it, the centennial anniversary of the 24 Hours of Le Mans, where everyone was watching, and against all odds they were able to show that they were Ferrari, that they are still one of the top brands in the world, being able to make a car in 1 year that's able to win the 24 Hours of Le Mans.